Also communicates that Brett Summer with Michael Stack, who headlines LFA 133 on June 3rd. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. Dude, you're 2 weeks out. How you feeling?
Uh, like I've been training really hard for this fight. I have put in the extra time, the work, whatever it needed to be. I put in what I needed to do for this camp to prepare myself as best I can to take home this belt.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Before we get to that fight, I wanted to go back to your fight in February. Been a few months. How did you feel about your performance against Kyle?
I was pretty happy with that performance. There was a lot of stuff that happened in that particular fight that a lot of people could have pulled out. I mean, I had every excuse to pull out of that fight.
What happened?
Well, that the week of the fight, I got super sick where I was vomiting and like the whole 9 yards. I was vomiting on the toilet, whatever, for pretty much a whole night. Didn't sleep at all. The Tuesday, the day before we flew out, I had to put my dog down. She was with me that whole camp. And part of that was because I was taking her with me because she had cancer, and we were trying to do the treatments and everything. But what ended up happening was the flight was on Wednesday. She was so sick she hadn't been eating for about 4 days at that point, maybe longer. And I was talking to the vet, and I was saying, is there any way we can postpone putting her down? Is there a way I can continue treatment, have her start getting better? And the vet said that she was probably going to pass if I had left. And if I had left, I wouldn't have been there for her. And I didn't think anyone really knew how to take care of her the way. I mean, she was really sick, you know what I mean? So I had to make a decision, like it being sick, then make a decision to put the dog down before I flew back, right? Because if I flew back, she might have passed while I was gone. So I had to, and she was suffering, and I didn't want her to suffer no more. So I had to put her down. And then Wednesday, when we fly out, almost missed the flight because there was a whole bunch of cancellations that morning. Then we almost missed the connecting flight, which would just been our fault. It was an accident, but we made it. When I get there on Thursday for the weigh, Kyle had missed weight by like 5 pounds. I think he was 156.6 when he originally weighed in. And, at that point I was like, you know what? I had to put my dog down just to make it to this fight. I'm not going to not fight this guy. Just get to 148 and I'll fight you. He weighs in at 148.6. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Let's do it.
God damn, that is a lot of shit. And I'm sorry to hear about your dog. Putting down animals, it's the worst fucking thing in the world. Really, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I mean, people will say, oh, it's just a dog, but I don't know, man. Sometimes like she was with me that whole camp. We'd go drive down to Denver. She was my road buddy. So it was like, it's definitely a void that I still feel every once in a while where I'm just like, man, I miss my dog. But what I am happy for is that she's not suffering anymore. So I haven't really had to experience anyone that I'm close to with cancer, and I'm so grateful for that because it is it's a brutal and horrible disease. So I'm grateful that I haven't had any family members that I love deal with that.
I echo you with cancer and everything. It's horrible. Man. So first LFA main event. How does that feel?
Well, that feels great. Validating, absolutely. I mean, LFA is a big deal. I think it's one of the better promotions outside of the UFC, besides like Bellator, PFL, and all those the larger ones. But yeah, it's a validating experience to say the least. to get that belt means a lot. It means that I've earned it, and it means that I didn't take the easy route there. So I'm very, very excited for it. I'm and very well prepared for it.
Fighting in Colorado has to feel good, right? Too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Hey, you're gonna come over to my backyard. I get to drink this this elevation and see it. I mean, from what I saw in his last fight, he can put on a good pace. So I'm expecting him to come into into the fight in shape, but I'm in shape too, and I live here. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about it, man. So you're fighting Jose Delano. He's a tough guy. You're gonna have to earn that belt because, man. I mean, looking at your record, man, like you fought nothing but tough people. So, how do you like this matchup?
I think this matchup is good for the fans. I think that his style is, he looks like he kind of likes the Muay Thai type style. He likes to throw. He likes to get in your face. I like to throw. I like to get in your face. I like to grapple too. And I like ground and pound. So I think that there will be, just because of the way we both are type of pressure fighters, I think there will be a lot of clashing and banging heads. You know what I mean? So just stylistically, I think it's a great matchup. He's southpaw, but he switches pretty often, and so I think he's got a lot of good tricks when it comes to his striking, but I don't think he's prepared for my wrestling and my grappling, and just the power that I have. I know that I have strong when I throw. I got some strong punches, so I mean, it's not going to be something where I expect to just walk through this guy. I expect to, if I have to, fight a 20 or 25 minutes of war. So, but yeah, I think I'm well prepared for that. So,
Do you think this is a perfect opponent for your first LFA main event?
perfect opponent, maybe. Maybe all the stars have aligned. I don't know. I can't really say it's a perfect opponent or this and that. I think I take everybody seriously, and everybody's a different puzzle to solve. Even if you fight the same guy, they're not the same guy that you fought the first time you fought them. So you're constantly having to solve a new puzzle in there, and each round's different. So, if it's just the perfect opportunity. It's perfect for me to be able to get there and fight, and that's all that I care about. And I think that's what's awesome to me, is like, hey, I've been recognized for the work that I'm putting in, and the talents that I have, and now they're giving me the opportunity to show it and earn that next level. And I think that's awesome. That's perfect for me.
Awesome, man. At the end of the day, June 3rd, how do you get your hand raised?
Well, I visualized a whole lot of stuff. I visualized it in a lot of different ways. I've visualized, like I said, a 25-minute war where we're beating the hell out of each other for 25 minutes, and it's going back and forth, and we're both exhausted. I want to puke in there. He wants to puke. Maybe we're bleeding all over the place. But I got my hand raised because I out-techniqued him, I outworked him, and I outgutted him. But I also visual myself landing a solid strike to his chin and just putting him down. I visualize myself mauling him on the ground. I visualize myself mauling him on the cage. I visualized myself bringing him into those deep waters out here at elevation and just drowning him and just making him want to quit. So I visualized a lot of different scenarios. At the end of the day, the thing that's always consistent in that is I am getting my hand raised, and I do have that belt around my waist, and I'm having a great time at the after party, and I'm having a great time carrying that thing and mounting it up on my wall. So that's what I visualized, and that was consistent.
Do you get a lot of family and friends coming to the fight?
I believe so. I believe I'll have a good crowd there. So I mean, I hope so. I'm a main event in my hometown. I'm glad people are showing up and showing out to support. So that's great.
Awesome, man. So not looking past your opponent, but you get this title. What do you want the rest of your year to look like? And I guess, most LFA champions get signed by a major organization. So is that your goal this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get that belt. I want to become a world champion, and then it's time to move on. I believe it's time to go to the UFC. I think I've talked to my management about possibly a short notice UFC fight or contender series fight. I would like to go straight into the UFC, but if I have to take a contender series fight, that's fine too. I kind of made up my mind where it's just like, hey, what the UFC is looking for is they're looking for grinders, and they're looking for people that are going to be active, put on and fight. And if they want me to fight for the LFA and then fight for the contender series and then earn my shot into the UFC, then fuck it, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to fight at the end of the day. So I want to make some money doing it, but let's get it. Let's prove that I'm the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to end on this. Did you help Justin Gonzalez for his fight against Kai Kamaka?
I did. Yeah, he's a great friend of mine, and obviously a great training partner. Yeah, we prepared for that fight.
What would you think of his performance?
I thought he did good. I thought both of them, they brought a good fight. Like, yeah, there's different things in Justin's style where it can slow down the fight a little bit, but it wasn't a slow fight at all. I didn't think. I thought it was full of action. I did think that it was a close fight. I think you could argue that Justin won more rounds than, you know what I mean? It was one of those fights where you can argue Justin won a lot of the rounds, or you could argue that he only won a few. It's just one of those, I don't know how to describe that or explain that away, where it's just like, it's one of those fights where you're just like, yeah, I agree with the decision, but I could see it going so many other ways, right? But at the end of the day, I knew that Justin had the advantage in that fight, in my opinion. I think that, and I think he implemented a good strategy at the end of the day. He looked good. I mean, not much I could say more than that. I'm glad he won.
Did you feel some kind of like, obviously you didn't get the rematch against Kai Kamaka, but like, did you feel kind of happy for him that he beat someone that beat you?
I get that. Brother asked me that, and I'm like, I think that if I fought Kai Kamaka again, I'd whoop his ass. So, I mean, I expect you to go in there and beat him. You know what I mean? Okay. I knew it was a tough fight regardless. But yeah, man, I just am happy to see my teammates succeed, whether or not it was to somebody that I lost to or somebody else. I want to see my teammates climb the ranks and make money and do well. So it could have been whoever was in there. I wanted him to win. And then as far as like, do I feel like there was retribution there? Man, I don't give a hell. I don't really care. I think at the end of the day, when I first fought Kai Kamaka, he was more willing to quit in that fight than I was, and he took more damage to the head than I did. He won the fight in a very smart way. He took me down in the third round, and I didn't get up. You know what I mean? So, but did he do any damage there? Absolutely not. I did more damage, in my opinion, in the third round than he did. But I didn't utilize the whole game like I should have, and I lost that fight. I've accepted that. I've learned from it. I've become a more mature fighter, and I think, yeah, if I fight him again, I'm smoking him. But hey, now I'm looking at different fighters, got a different path, and this is my path now. So it's time to move on. Time to do other things.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, did you have a chance to watch the MVP versus Logan Storley fight?
You know what? I saw highlights of it. I saw some clips of it. And then I also saw Scott Coker's comment on it, that thinking that he thought Logan lost, saying that you can't just wrestle somebody to win a fight.
Yeah. So as a wrestler, what do you think of that? Like, do you think, taking somebody down wins you a fight, or do you have to do damage? You know what I'm saying? Like, what as a wrestler, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a fight, not a wrestling match. And yeah, I wrestle and stuff, but I wouldn't consider myself a wrestler. I just happen to come from a camp because I only took 3 years in high school of wrestling. That's as far as I went. I never wrestled collegiately. My wrestling came from my head coach, Ryan Schultz, who's a phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal grappler, and Steve Peters. But as far as, the fight goes, dude, it's a fight. If you got to include some strikes. You can't just like hug somebody's legs and hold them down on the ground. There is a point, though, where when you're constantly wrestling and flowing and there's position changes and strikes are being thrown, but then you go back to posturing, pinning, repositioning, and all those things. That is a very grueling and very tough part of the game. But I still think it's an exciting part of the game, right? My last fight with Caio Gregorio, it was more of a grappling match. We struck a little bit on the feet, but his level of jiu-jitsu and then my wrestling, like, they were pretty good, well mixed. And I think he was utilizing a lot of sweeps, and it was hard for me to strike with him often, so I had to select my strikes, and otherwise I was going to get swept. And so it might have been a slower pace, but I still thought it was an interesting fight because those grab changes were you could tell, okay, if he loses this exchange, like, he might lose this round or this match. So there was still that excitement into it. But I think if you're just going to hold somebody on the cage and just kind of like there's nothing going on, yeah, man, that's boring, and that's not really a fight. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think everybody wants to win by a knockout anyways. I mean, submitting somebody's great, don't get me wrong, but I think when you knock somebody out, like, everybody's like, oh, that was so cool, right? Everybody wants to see that. I love submissions, but knocking somebody out's pretty nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no. I guess I wrestled him because I thought you had wrestled at University of Colorado. So, so I fucked that up. So for anybody that doesn't know your story, how did you get into mixed martial arts?
Well, I don't know, man. Like, so I grew up, my dad, he's an ex-convict. So I grew up kind of knowing the little bit harder side of life. You know what I mean? We were homeless for a little bit when I was younger. So I was bouncing around. I was bouncing around a lot, like, to different schools, different places in Colorado. And I would never say that I lived in the ghetto, but, I've lived in harder spots. And then, every time I went to a new place, I always had to, like, kind of prove I'm not a pushover. Sorry about that. My phone's about to die. My phone said go low power mode. But yeah, so I went to a new place, new school. I think I was a little immature as a young kid. I always wanted to be the class clown. I was kind of like obnoxious, and maybe that got on people's nerves. But I'm also kind of like a hard-headed dude. So, like, if you're going to test me or try me, I'm not going to just roll over for you, right? And I think because of that kind of like confidence that I had, combined with a little bit of being punchable, I think I had to get into a lot of fights, and I realized, I'm pretty good at this and I like it. So by the time I got to high school, that's when I started watching the UFC with a buddy of mine. We'd go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Can you believe it took me till I was a high schooler to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and have my first wings? I never had hot wings until I went to high school. Dude, they're my favorite. I'm like, how the hell did I go without eating this delicious food? I think wings are one of my favorite. But anyways, we'd go to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch all the fights. And I was like, wow, I would sometimes visualize myself being in the cage. It would make me so freaking anxious. Like, I'd be like, how do people do that? It's so crazy. Like, to get across in a cage from another trained fighter at a high level in front of all these people, that would make me so, like, I would feel like I was about to get into a fight just thinking about it. And it would make me so uncomfortable. But, you know, it reminds me of that saying, if it scares you, it's good. Like, if your goals don't scare you, then they're too small. Um, but anyway, so I started thinking about, you know, maybe I'll want to do that. So I joined the wrestling team as a sophomore. I was a 3-sport athlete. I did wrestling, I swam, and I played football. Once I graduated, I went into mixed martial arts gym, and the rest is history. And I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to commit to it. And I'm going to do the best that I can at it. And I think that if I do the best that I can be a world champion. I think that I have the talents and the heart and just the durability to be great. So, you know, and I think that's all you need is the desire and the will to go. So let's do it.
And look at you now, you're on the doorstep of the UFC, which is so many fighters' dreams.
Right. And, you know, one thing though is getting in the UFC doesn't really mean a whole lot. There's a lot of guys that have had 2 fights in the UFC, both lost, and they're out, right? So once you get there, you have to maintain, you have to stay, and you have to have this skill to compete at the highest level. So I need to constantly be improving, and I am. And I know that, you know, you're only as good as your last fight. So you always got to be just moving forward. And that's the name of the game, but it's all right. It's all right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, Michael, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. You want to plug your social media? You want to plug any sponsors you got? You want to thank anybody? The floor is yours.
Yeah. So actually one of my sponsors right here is Filthy Streetwear. It's actually a company that I came up with myself. It was, I just kind of had the idea of, like, you know, like when you're out there grinding and putting in that work, and just, you know, you got to get a little filthy to get to your goals. You know what I mean? You got to get a little dirty. So that's one of them. My Instagram is going to be Michael Stack _MMA. And, you know, man, there's a whole lot of them, but I can't remember. They're all my stuff. So I'm not going to get mad at myself if I forget right now, but that's the main one that I'm focused on right now. So I appreciate it. I'll just want to shout out Trials Mixed Martial Arts, my gym, pound for pound, and high altitude team elevation down in Denver. So I think that'll be good enough there.